When you truly begin to understand the nature of creation, you realize that nothing in this universe is achieved by force. There is an invisible law that governs all manifestation, and it moves not through struggle but through awareness. Everything that will ever exist already exists within the infinite imagination of consciousness. What we call creation is not an act of bringing something new into being, but an act of unveiling what has always been true. You do not have to push against life to make things happen. You simply have to align yourself with what already is. The world you experience is nothing but a reflection of the world you have accepted within yourself. The first great key to effortless manifestation lies in understanding that all things are finished. Every possibility you could ever dream of already exists within the eternal mind of God. You are not a creator in the sense of building something from nothing. You are a selector among infinite realities. To force something to happen is to declare unconsciously that it does not yet exist, and the very act of declaring its absence ensures that you will continue to experience that absence. When you try to make things happen through outer effort, you are denying the inner truth that everything is already done. The law of life responds not to effort, but to feeling. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you dwell in the inner conviction that your desire is already yours, you align your consciousness with the completed state of that desire. And when consciousness aligns, the outer world rearranges itself to mirror that alignment. That is the great secret behind creation. Everything is consciousness. You can never experience something that you are not conscious of being. So when you become conscious of being successful, loved, free, or healed, the outer circumstances of your life must bend themselves to that new identity. Effortless manifestation is not about doing less in the outer world. It is about doing more in the inner world. The outer world is the shadow, and the inner world is the cause. When you labor endlessly in the external realm, without first assuming the inner state of fulfillment, you are like a sculptor trying to shape the shadow instead of the statue. But when you first mold your inner conviction, the shadow naturally follows the form. This is why the one who understands the law no longer strives. They rest in faith, knowing that their assumption, once accepted, will solidify into fact. You do not have to fight for what is already yours. You only have to claim it inwardly and remain loyal to that claim. The feeling of effort, of strain, is the signal that you are working against the law rather than with it. When you try to make something happen, you are confessing lack. You are affirming separation between yourself and your desire. But when you rest in the assumption that it is already done, you erase that separation. The unseen reality moves into the seen without resistance. For there is no longer any distance between you and what you seek. Many people misunderstand faith. They think faith is passive or naive. But true faith is creative awareness. It is the quiet certainty that knows reality must conform to imagination. To the one who lives in faith, there is no waiting, no hoping, no doubting. There is only knowing. And this knowing does not come from the evidence of the senses, but from the vision of the inner eye. You do not need to see it to believe it. You need to believe it to see it. This is the divine paradox that governs all creation. When you assume the end and live as though your wish were already fulfilled, something remarkable begins to happen. Life reorganizes itself in ways you could never plan or predict. Circumstances, people, and events shift as if guided by an invisible intelligence. And indeed, they are. For the outer world is consciousness objectified. The moment you fix your consciousness upon a new state, that state begins to externalize itself. You do not need to know how. The how belongs to the unseen intelligence that moves through all things. Your only task is to persist in the assumption until it hardens into fact. Every act of forcing is born from impatience, and impatience is born from disbelief. When you are convinced of the reality of your desire, you do not rush. You rest. You no longer wake each day wondering if it will happen. You wake with gratitude, knowing it has already happened in the unseen. That is the vibration of certainty that magnetizes all things to you. The one who understands this law no longer tries to manipulate life, but learns to dwell quietly in the feeling of the answered prayer. To live this way is to become free. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are no longer chasing outcomes or waiting for external validation. You have discovered that life mirrors your inner state, and that mirror is faithful. It reflects not what you want, but what you are conscious of being. When you shift that consciousness, the reflection must change. This is the effortless rhythm of manifestation, where desire is not achieved through labor, but realized through knowing. Stillness is the gateway through which this realization enters. In the quiet of the mind, you hear the voice of creation. Every miracle begins in silence. The universe does not speak in the noise of panic or the clamor of effort. It whispers in stillness. The seed of desire grows not in noise, but in calm surrender to the soil. In the same way, your manifestations unfold not through constant mental struggle, but through deep rest and awareness. When you become still, you do not stop creation, you invite it. You become an open vessel through which the unseen can express itself. Stillness is not idleness. It is the highest form of activity, for it is in stillness that consciousness moves mountains. The mind that is quiet is a magnet for divine ideas. It perceives the perfect pattern hidden beneath appearances and draws that pattern into form. When you are still, you are in harmony with the creative current of life, and that current carries you effortlessly toward fulfillment. The world has taught us to glorify striving, to celebrate endless motion, to equate rest with laziness. But the spiritual law operates in reverse. The more frantic the motion, the weaker the power. The quieter the spirit, the stronger the influence. Stillness is the secret force behind all manifestation. The calm mind commands where the restless mind obeys. When you are inwardly still, you no longer beg for results. You expect them as naturally as the dawn expects the sun. In stillness, you become aware of the deeper rhythm of creation. You begin to see that everything unfolds in divine sequence. You stop trying to control outcomes and instead align with the perfect timing of the universe. This alignment produces peace, and that peace is the atmosphere in which miracles are born. Nothing truly great was ever achieved by haste. The oak does not rush to grow. It expands according to the wisdom written within its seed. Likewise, your dreams unfold according to the pattern impressed within your imagination. The power of inner stillness is that it allows you to transcend the evidence of the senses. When the outer world appears to contradict your desire, it is in stillness that you find strength not to react. Reaction is the language of fear. Calmness is the expression of mastery. The moment you react, you reaffirm the reality of what you do not want. But when you remain still, unmoved, you affirm the supremacy of your inner conviction. That stillness says silently to the world, "It is already done." This inner peace is not the absence of movement, but the presence of certainty. You can act in the outer world while remaining inwardly still. The action is no longer forced. It flows naturally from intuition. When the mind is quiet, intuition speaks clearly. You will find yourself moved to act at the perfect time, in the perfect way, with the perfect result. This is effortless action, action born not from anxiety, but from alignment. To live from stillness is to live in trust. You no longer feel the need to push doors open because you know that what is meant for you cannot be withheld. The universe is not your opponent. It is your reflection. If something does not move in your favor today, it is only because you have not yet assumed the vibration that compels it. The moment you change your inner state, life mirrors that change. Stillness teaches you patience, and patience reveals your power. The greatest masters of creation have always known this secret. They understand that imagination is the workshop of reality, but imagination is clearest only when the mind is still. If the mind is noisy, filled with fear and doubt, it cannot hear the subtle whisper of inspiration. Stillness purifies the channel through which imagination speaks. It allows you to see the invisible pattern of your desire and merge with it until it becomes natural. To the untrained mind, stillness feels uncomfortable because it exposes what lies beneath the surface. Yet this exposure is the beginning of transformation. When you face your restlessness and observe it without judgment, it dissolves. The more you practice inner calm, the more power you accumulate. Your energy becomes focused instead of scattered. Your words carry weight. Your assumptions shape reality swiftly, because the still mind projects without distortion. When you begin to cultivate inner stillness, you notice how life starts responding differently. Things that once seemed difficult begin to flow. People appear at the right time. Opportunities unfold with ease. You begin to see that the universe was never withholding your desires. It was simply waiting for you to stop resisting them with force. Stillness removes resistance, and in the absence of resistance, the law operates perfectly. There is a beauty in this simplicity. You no longer need to plan every detail or predict every outcome. You only need to quiet your mind, assume the end, and trust the process. When you do, life moves with you, not against you. You become a participant in divine order rather than a struggler in chaos. Your stillness becomes your prayer, and your faith becomes your magnet. When you live in this awareness, you realize that nothing is truly missing. Every desire that stirs within you is a call from the unseen, inviting you to remember what is already true. You stop chasing, because you understand that all things come to the one who knows they already possess them. This is the great mystery of effortless manifestation and the sacred power of stillness. Force is born from fear. It appears whenever the mind forgets that creation is already complete. When you attempt to push life into order, to demand outcomes through sheer effort, you are declaring silently that you do not trust the unseen law that governs all things. You are trying to move the tide with your hands, when the current itself is already designed to carry you exactly where you need to go. Every act of force is the confession of disbelief. It says, I do not yet have it, therefore I must fight for it. But creation responds not to your fight, it responds to your faith. The unseen world listens to your vibration, not your struggle. You do not need to force anything into existence because everything already exists in potential. Your desire is not something distant. It is a spiritual reality waiting to be acknowledged. The moment you force, you are working against the current of divine imagination. You are attempting to add to what is already finished. The world you see is only the shadow of your inner state. To change the shadow by fighting it is madness. To change the inner state is mastery. The more you push against appearances, the more power you give them. The more you rest in the unseen reality, the more appearances must transform. Force always belongs to the realm of fear because fear believes in separation. It believes that life and you are two different things. But in truth, life is you externalized. There is no out there separate from your state of being. When you understand this, you stop wrestling with the world and begin to work only within yourself. You realize that every conflict, every obstacle, every delay is nothing but a reflection of inner resistance. You cannot fight with the reflection in the mirror. You can only change the face that casts it. When you force, you make the outer world your master. You start to react to circumstances instead of creating them. You lose the awareness that imagination shapes reality. The spiritual law never yields to human willpower. It yields only to inner conviction. This is why struggle fails. No matter how much physical effort you pour into something, if you are not aligned with it inwardly, the effort only strengthens the sense of lack. To force is to affirm that you are not yet the person who naturally receives that which you desire. You are saying, I must do something to become it, when in truth, you only need to assume that you already are it. The divine imagination does not operate through struggle. It operates through ease, through naturalness, through the quiet knowing that what is seen was once unseen, and what is unseen is already complete. The mind that forces is anxious, and anxiety breaks alignment. It creates a vibration of separation, which delays the manifestation. The one who understands the law moves differently. They act, yes, but their actions are effortless, intuitive, inspired. They no longer labor to change what is outside because they know the outer must follow the inner. When you force something, you trap yourself in time. You make your desire a future event that you must chase. But all creation exists now. The unseen is not in tomorrow. It is in this moment, waiting to be acknowledged. The only reason you do not experience it yet is because you continue to live in a state of seeking, rather than being. Force is seeking. Faith is being. The one who believes they already have does not chase. They attract. The fallacy of force lies in its blindness to spiritual law. You cannot make the invisible appear through struggle. You make it appear through assumption. To struggle is to declare that the power lies outside you. To assume is to remember that the power is within. The inner world is the only cause. Once that is understood, the idea of forcing becomes absurd. You would no more force the sunrise than you would force a flower to bloom before its time. You would simply know that it is unfolding perfectly according to its nature. So too is your life. This is why every master of manifestation speaks of surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that life moves by divine intelligence. You do not have to command it. You only have to align with it. The river does not need to push to reach the ocean. It simply flows. When you flow with the law instead of resisting it, everything begins to move smoothly. The unseen current of your assumption carries you effortlessly to the realization of your desire. The struggle to make things happen often comes from impatience. The mind believes that delay means denial, that waiting means lack of power. But every desire has its perfect hour of expression. Forcing does not accelerate it. It only creates tension. You cannot see the roots of the tree growing, but they grow nonetheless. You do not dig up the seed to check its progress. You trust the process. You allow the unseen to work in silence. The same principle applies to your desires. When you let them be, when you rest in conviction, they unfold naturally and inevitably. The harder you try, the more you push it away. This is the law of reversed effort. The swimmer who thrashes in panic sinks, but the one who relaxes floats. Life operates by the same principle. The more you try to control outcomes, the more resistance you create. The moment you release control, the energy that was once locked by tension begins to flow freely again. You rise not because you fought, but because you surrendered to the natural law of buoyancy. In the realm of consciousness, faith is buoyancy, fear is weight. When you trust, you rise effortlessly into the reality you desire. The law of reversed effort teaches that the intensity of your trying often produces the opposite of your intention. You try to sleep and stay awake. You try to remember and forget. You try to please others and end up misunderstood. The moment you relax, the thing you sought appears. Why? Because trying comes from the conscious effort to control what only the subconscious can do. The subconscious mind is the womb of creation. It responds not to pressure but to acceptance. When you impress an idea upon it with relaxed conviction, it accepts it as true and expresses it without resistance. Effort in the outer world often hides unbelief in the inner. You act frantically because you do not yet feel that it is done. But when you live in the end, when you feel the wish fulfilled, your actions lose their desperation. They become natural extensions of your inner state. You no longer act to get. You act because you already have. This difference is subtle, but it changes everything. One stems from fear, the other from fulfillment. When you understand the law of reversed effort, you begin to value relaxation as a creative power. Relaxation is not passivity. It is trust. It is confidence in the unseen process of manifestation. It is the quiet knowing that your desire, once assumed, is already accomplished in the invisible and will reveal itself in perfect sequence. The relaxed mind is the open door through which inspiration flows. When you are relaxed, your intuition becomes sharp, your timing perfect, your decisions effortless. You find yourself moved at the right moment to say the right words, or take the right step without strain. To relax is to align, to force is to resist. The mind that knows this moves through life with grace. It no longer fights against appearances but understands that appearances are temporary, projections of old states of consciousness. The wise person does not react to them. They silently choose a new state and dwell there until the outer world conforms. They understand that creation is finished and that faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. The law of reversed effort also reveals the futility of worry. Worry is effort in disguise. It is the mind attempting to control the uncontrollable. The more you worry, the more energy you give to the very outcome you fear. The way to dissolve worry is not to argue with it, but to replace it with inner knowing. When you assume the feeling of already being secure, already being successful, already being loved, the mind no longer feels the need to fight. It rests in assurance, and the law begins to work on your behalf. Every time you release tension, you step closer to manifestation. The very act of relaxing signals to the subconscious that the desire is already achieved. You would not relax if it were not so. That is why relaxation is magnetic. It sends a message to the unseen that says, "It is done," and the unseen responds accordingly. In the same way, effort sends the message, "It is not yet mine," and the law confirms that as well. The universe mirrors your conviction with perfect accuracy. Imagine two gardeners planting seeds. One plants his seed and waters it gently, trusting nature to do its work. The other plants his seed, but digs it up every few hours to check its growth. Which one will see the harvest? The first, because he trusts the process. The second destroys his own creation by constant interference. Forcing life is like digging up your seed. You interrupt the natural process by doubting it. Faith is patience in action. It is the calm awareness that growth is happening even when you cannot yet see it. When you stop forcing, you open yourself to the infinite intelligence that knows exactly how to fulfill your desire. This intelligence is not limited by logic or by what seems possible. It arranges people, events, and circumstances in ways that defy human reasoning. But it cannot work through a mind filled with tension. It needs stillness. It needs trust. The moment you relax and let go, it begins to move. Suddenly, the path that seemed blocked clears. The opportunity you longed for appears. The right person enters your life. You did not make it happen. You allowed it to happen. Life is not meant to be a battle of willpower. It is meant to be a dance of alignment. You do not conquer reality by fighting it. You transcend it by assuming the consciousness of your desire fulfilled. When you live from that assumption, your energy becomes coherent. The scattered fragments of doubt and fear begin to merge into a single stream of intention. That focused energy manifests as clarity, as opportunity, as results. This is not the work of force but the work of faith. The law of reversed effort invites you to trust that the more you let go, the more power you possess. You are not abandoning your desire. You are giving it room to breathe. You are removing the walls of doubt that suffocate it. When you rest in knowing, life begins to move in harmony with you. The external world ceases to feel like opposition and starts to feel like cooperation. The current that once seemed to push against you now carries you effortlessly forward. To live this way is to understand the sacred paradox of creation. You receive not by grasping, but by letting go. You achieve not by struggling, but by believing. You manifest not through force, but through surrender to the higher law that governs all things. When you trust this law, you discover that what you once chased now comes to you of its own accord. For life always meets you at the level of your inner conviction. Every desire that rises within you carries its own fulfillment hidden within it. Nothing you long for is meant to remain distant or unattainable. The moment a desire is born in your heart, the seed of its completion is already planted in the unseen. Agreement is not made through words. It is established through feeling, through acceptance, through the quiet decision within your imagination that says yes. This inner yes is the act of creation itself. Once you have inwardly accepted something as true, you have already given it life. Everything that follows is merely the shadow of that silent acceptance. Unfolding in the world of form. To agree inwardly with your desire is to abandon doubt. It is to see yourself not as one striving towards something, but as one who already is what they seek. Inner agreement does not mean hoping or wishing, because hope is the acknowledgement of absence. Agreement is different. It is certainty. It is that calm recognition that the desired reality already exists in consciousness, and therefore must manifest. When you come into agreement with your desire, you are no longer asking for it. You are claiming it. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. The one who asks is uncertain, but the one who claims knows. Every manifestation is born from this inner union. What you seek is not separate from you. The outer world is only an echo of the inner conversation you hold with yourself. When your inner dialogue is filled with conflict, with self-doubt, with contradiction, you send out mixed signals to the creative power within you. But when your mind and your feeling are one, when your thoughts and emotions move in harmony toward the same end, creation becomes effortless. The moment you fully agree with your desire, reality must align with that agreement. There is no power that can oppose the mind that is undivided. This is why imagination is so powerful. It allows you to see and feel beyond the limits of the senses. When you imagine yourself already in possession of your desire, you are not pretending. You are entering the state where that desire already exists. Every imagined scene accepted as true imprints itself upon the subconscious mind, and the subconscious has no choice but to express it. It does not reason or question. It only accepts. When your imagination and your emotion are united, the subconscious becomes impregnated with that image, and it begins to shape the outer world according to it. Inner agreement is not achieved by force, but by surrender. You do not fight to believe. You simply allow belief to settle in. You do not convince yourself. You consent. This consent is the moment you stop arguing with life. You no longer say, "I hope this will happen," or "maybe someday." You say quietly within yourself, "This is mine." It is already done, and from that moment, your actions, your tone, your very presence begin to reflect that inner conviction. Life listens not to your words but to the vibration you emit. Agreement creates that vibration of completion, and completion attracts completion. Once you come into this agreement, patience becomes natural. You no longer worry about time or circumstance because you know that the outer must mirror the inner. You stop reacting to appearances because you understand that appearances are only delayed reflections. The world may not yet show the result, but you know it is already done within. That knowing creates peace, and peace is the perfect atmosphere for manifestation. Faith is the quiet magnet that draws the unseen into the seen. It is the invisible bridge between what you imagine and what you experience. Faith never argues, never pleads, never worries. It simply knows. To live in faith is to live from the end. To walk each day as though the unseen were visible and the invisible were tangible. Faith does not try to make something happen. It knows it already has. Faith works silently. It does not shout. It does not demand proof. It is that inner stillness that remains unshaken even when the senses deny what is true within. When you possess faith, you no longer seek signs, because faith itself is the sign. The moment you feel certain, the outer world begins its journey of rearrangement. The conditions, people, and events that will reveal your desire start to move toward you in ways you cannot see. Faith is the unseen gravity of creation. This silent magnetism is the essence of divine law. The universe does not respond to noise or desperation. It responds to certainty. The moment you decide that something is already yours, a signal is sent out into the unseen. That signal is not a wish. It is a declaration. Faith is that declaration made in silence. You do not need to announce it to the world. You hold it quietly in your consciousness until it becomes so real within you that the world must conform. Faith is not a fragile thing. It does not waver with time. If what you desire has not yet appeared, faith does not question. It knows that everything is unfolding perfectly. To the mind of faith, delay does not mean denial. It simply means that the outer form is catching up with the inner conviction. You do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. You water it with expectation. The same law governs every manifestation. The unseen must first take root in consciousness before it appears in form. Faith is that unwavering knowing that the root already exists even when the flower has not yet bloomed. The difference between those who manifest with ease and those who struggle lies entirely in their level of faith. The one who forces does not believe the unseen is working. The one who trusts knows it always is. Faith is not passive. It is the most active power in existence, yet its action is invisible. It operates in silence, moving through the unseen currents of consciousness, arranging everything required for the fulfillment of your desire. When you have faith, you no longer beg the universe. You commune with it. You know you are one with the creative power that shapes all things. You stop praying as if to an external force and begin to assume the identity of the one who already possesses what was once sought. This shift in awareness is the essence of creation. Faith says, I am, while doubt says, I will be. The universe always answers the tone of your inner speech. If you say, I will be, you are forever placing fulfillment in the future. If you say, I am, you pull it into the present. Faith draws your desire with the same certainty that gravity draws objects to the earth. It is not effort that attracts what you want. It is identity. When you embody the feeling of already being that which you desire to be, reality must adjust to reflect it. You are never attracting something external. You are revealing what was hidden within you all along. The outer world is simply a mirror reflecting your state of consciousness. Faith is the magnet that brings that reflection into view. To cultivate faith, you must learn to detach from appearances. The senses will tempt you to believe only what you can see, but faith lives beyond the senses. It operates in imagination. When everything around you denies the possibility of your desire, that is the very moment to affirm it even more strongly within. The outer world is always behind the inner. What you see today is the residue of yesterday's beliefs. Change your inner assumption now, and tomorrow's reflection will be different. Faith does not hurry. It does not worry. It rests. It is the quiet confidence that what is yours cannot be lost, that what is meant for you cannot pass you by. It trusts the process, not because it is naive, but because it understands the order of creation. Every result in life is a delayed echo of a previous assumption. If the echo is not yet pleasant, change the sound you are sending out. Adjust the tone of your inner belief, and the echo will change naturally. When you embody faith, you also release resistance. Resistance is the tension between desire and disbelief. It is that subtle inner conflict that says yes and no at the same time. Faith removes that conflict. It replaces it with unity. It says yes once and forever. This is why faith feels peaceful. You no longer question whether it will happen. You know it already has in the unseen. That knowing dissolves fear, and the absence of fear allows the creative power to flow without obstruction. Faith is also freedom from time. It lives entirely in the present. When you say, it will happen, you push your desire into the future, and the future never arrives. But when you say, it is happening now, you pull it into the eternal now, which is the only true moment of creation. The subconscious responds only to the present tense. It must be impressed with the feeling that the desire is already a fact. Faith maintains that impression until the outer world catches up. This inner certainty transforms the way you experience life. You begin to move through the world with quiet assurance. You speak less of problems and more of possibilities. You stop looking for evidence because you have become the evidence. You no longer ask life for permission. You declare your identity and let life rearrange itself accordingly. Faith makes you magnetic not because of what you do, but because of what you are being. The power of faith cannot be overstated. It is the creative force of the universe moving through you. Every act of belief sends ripples through the unseen that eventually take shape in the seen. The world has been taught to believe in outer power, in action, in force. But true power lies in inner conviction. Faith is invisible to the eye, yet it governs everything the eye sees. It is the silent architect of your destiny, the unspoken word that shapes the spoken world. When you cultivate this level of faith, you begin to notice how life responds differently. What once seemed distant begins to draw near. What once required effort begins to unfold naturally. You realize that the universe was never withholding your desires. It was waiting for your agreement. Once you agree inwardly and hold faith silently, creation moves swiftly. You become the vibration of fulfillment, and the law mirrors that vibration faithfully. Faith is the resting place of the soul. It is the calm in the midst of uncertainty, the light in the unseen, the bridge between imagination and reality. It does not argue, it does not struggle, it does not seek approval. It simply knows. And that knowing is the greatest creative act of all. Letting go is the silent act of faith that most people never master. The world teaches that control is power, that effort proves commitment, that pushing harder brings results. But the truth is the opposite. The moment you cling, you choke the flow of life. The moment you try to force something into being, you announce to the universe that it is not yet yours. Letting go is not surrendering to defeat. It is surrendering to divine intelligence. It is the quiet recognition that the same power that gave birth to your desire also knows how to bring it into form without your constant interference. You are not the worker of miracles. You are the vessel through which miracles unfold. When you learn to let go, you step back into harmony with the unseen law that governs all creation. Letting go does not mean forgetting your desire or pretending it no longer matters. It means releasing the tension, the anxiety, the impatience that binds you to lack. It means trusting that once the seed of desire has been planted within you, its growth is inevitable. The gardener does not dig up the seed each morning to check its progress. He waters it, he trusts it, he leaves it in peace. The same principle applies to manifestation. Once you have imagined the end with conviction, once you have felt the reality of your fulfilled desire, your work is complete. From that point on, your task is not to make it happen, but to maintain your inner harmony. You must resist the temptation to interfere with the natural process of unfolding. The moment you try to control how or when it happens, you pull the seed from the soil of consciousness and delay its blooming. There is an invisible rhythm to creation, and everything arrives in perfect timing. The human mind, trapped in the illusion of time, becomes restless when results do not appear immediately. But divine timing is never late. It is always exact. The delays you perceive are not denials. They are alignments. They are the universe rearranging itself to deliver what you have already accepted in consciousness. To let go is to trust that this rearrangement is taking place beyond your sight. It is to rest in the knowing that what is yours cannot be lost. What belongs to you by right of consciousness will find its way, no matter how many paths it must travel. When you let go, you are not abandoning the dream. You are stepping into the state of already having it. This is the secret most never grasp. The moment you truly feel that your desire is fulfilled, you naturally lose the urge to struggle for it. You no longer need to force or control because the inner conviction of completion dissolves all doubt. The peace that follows this realization is not passive. It is creative. It is a silent command to the universe saying, "It is done." That feeling of peace is the evidence that your assumption is working itself into form. Many hold on because they fear that letting go means losing control. But control is an illusion. You were never in control of the outer world, only of your inner state. The outer world merely reflects your state back to you like a mirror. When you let go, you are not losing control. You are reclaiming the only true power you ever had, the power to choose your inner feeling. You move from forcing outcomes to flowing with them. You begin to notice that life starts arranging coincidences, unexpected meetings, and perfect timing, all orchestrated without your effort. That is the beauty of letting go. It returns you to the natural harmony that was always there, waiting for you to stop resisting. The art of letting go is also the art of faith in action. Faith is not a concept to be discussed. It is a state to be lived. Faith means you trust that what you have imagined is real, even before you see it. It means you no longer need to chase or manipulate appearances because you understand that appearances are the echo, not the cause. Faith is the cause. When you truly have faith, you stop begging life to change and start knowing that it already has. You speak less about your desire because you feel its fulfillment within you. You no longer seek signs. You become the sign. That still confidence within you is faith expressing itself. Faith is the silent magnet that pulls all things into form. It operates through certainty, not struggle. The mind that knows does not argue with appearances. It simply rests, aware that unseen forces are already at work. Faith is the invisible bridge between imagination and manifestation. Every act of creation begins in the invisible and becomes visible through faith. The man of faith walks through the storm with calm assurance because he knows that the outcome is already determined. The outer chaos cannot touch him because his inner conviction is stronger than what his senses report. Faith is not loud. It does not demand proof. It does not bargain or plead. It stands still, knowing that the unseen world is more real than what eyes can see. Faith operates in silence, but its effects are thunderous. The entire universe bends to the conviction of a single mind that believes without wavering. When you walk in faith, life mirrors that certainty back to you. People, opportunities, and circumstances begin to move in your favor, not by your manipulation, but by your magnetic alignment. You draw them through the invisible law that always responds to your inner state. The moment you truly understand faith, you stop chasing outcomes. You no longer ask, "When will it come?" because you realize it is already here in the unseen. You stop doubting divine timing because you trust the intelligence that governs all creation. Every delay becomes a blessing because you see it as divine orchestration. Faith removes the anxiety of waiting because you no longer wait. You live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. This shift from waiting to knowing transforms everything. It dissolves resistance, and resistance is the only obstacle between desire and fulfillment. Faith is not something you build through effort. It grows naturally when you become familiar with the power within you. When you start to see that imagination creates reality, when you witness even one manifestation come to life, your confidence strengthens. You begin to understand that the unseen responds faithfully to your assumptions. Each experience becomes proof of your creative power. Soon, faith becomes your natural state. You begin to live by it as easily as you breathe. You no longer question whether things will happen. You expect them to. Faith also means understanding that you do not need to know the how. The mind that insists on knowing every step only reveals its lack of trust. The divine mind already knows the path, even if you cannot see it yet. Faith is walking through the darkness without fear because you know the light is already there. It is trusting that the bridge will appear beneath your feet as you walk. You do not stand still waiting to see the whole road. You take the first step in confidence, and the rest unfolds naturally. That is the essence of faith. It acts without hesitation because it knows that creation is already finished in the unseen. Faith works in harmony with letting go. One cannot exist without the other. You let go because you have faith. You have faith because you have let go. They are two sides of the same divine principle. When you truly have faith, letting go becomes effortless because there is no fear left to hold on to. When you truly let go, faith becomes alive because you have released every doubt that contradicts it. Together, they form the perfect state of creation, relaxed, assured, and unshakable. There is no greater demonstration of power than the calm soul that rests in faith. This is the secret posture of the Creator. The world may call it an action, but it is the most profound action of all. It is the invisible command that shapes reality. When you live from this state, everything comes to you. People sense your confidence and are drawn to it. Circumstances align in ways you could never have planned. What once required endless effort begins to flow to you without resistance. You do not chase. You attract. You do not worry. You know. You do not beg. You become. When you embody this level of faith, you begin to live from a higher plane of consciousness. You no longer operate in the world of effort and struggle. You move into the realm of effortless manifestation, where everything unfolds through the power of your assumption. The universe becomes your reflection, and your faith is the painter's brush. You realize that nothing ever happens to you. Everything happens through you. Every scene, every event, every encounter is drawn by the invisible current of your inner belief. Letting go and faith are not techniques to practice. They are states of being to embody. The more you live in these states, the more naturally life flows. You stop fighting, you stop chasing, and you begin to experience the peace that comes from knowing you are one with the source of all things. That peace is not idle. It is creative. It carries within it the entire power of the universe. When you rest in that peace, creation moves through you effortlessly. You no longer need to push the river because you have become the river. Everything that is meant for you flows in your direction with perfect ease. And you realize it was never about trying harder, it was about believing deeper.